A deadly train crash with derailment happens in Greece, and Joe Biden is all over himself to go back and try to give his condolences for this train crash, while continuing outright, by the way, to go to East Palestine. So we'll talk about that and some of the other rumors that have come out about the East Palestine train crash, including a Guardian article that, I'm sorry, I 100% don't buy. But we'll be talking about that, what that means, and where we go from there. Speaking of the houseplant and sheep, two Russians who had dined with Joe and Hunter mysteriously avoid sanctions as we go to send more weapons into the Ukraine, and Merrick Garland, for reasons completely unknown, decides that he is also going to make an appearance in the Ukraine. So we'll talk about that and what's happening there. Nina Jankowicz has started to crowdfund a new effort to file a lawsuit for disinformation against Fox News, so we'll be going over some of that. And the odds of U.S. debt default have already tripled this year as Republicans introduce a bill to force the Biden admin to show where they could be doing their own spending cuts. It is going to be all of this and more. I was the one flying the balloon. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar, and this is your evening news for Friday, March 3rd, 2023. And we have got a bunch of stuff to go over here today. It's going to be an interesting one. I can definitely tell you that this is an interesting shotgun blast of news that we have to go over here today. The thing that really gets me is Biden legitimately coming out and actually making the announcement that he is just not going to go to East Palestine, while still saying he has all the condolence in the world for the people of Greece. So we'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about Nina Jankowicz. We'll be talking about Russia, the Ukraine, the debt ceiling. We've got some economic news based on home prices. It's a little bit of a follow-up to something we talked about yesterday. And even the Portland stores, Walmarts, are actually closing too. So a lot of stuff happening here. Reminder to everybody who has been watching Contemporary for a long time, we will not be doing live chat tonight. I'll be looking into your live chat, obviously, and as you guys have noticed, I've been taking some time and reacting to live chat more live on air than I had been previously when it was a morning show, and we had that hard dead out every morning because I had to get out and go to work. We don't have that hard dead out anymore, so I can, I still want to keep it to 2 hours, but if we don't, it's not the end of the world like it used to be. So I've been trying to pay attention more, but we will start doing our dedicated live chat segment on Mondays. That will be our Monday night close of the show, looking in and seeing what you guys have to say in the live chat, because that's still one of my favorite segments. But, it's Friday night. Some of you have dates, maybe not all of you, but some of you have dates. Some of you have, things you want to do. You want to start going and seeing your family. You want to go to a fish fry. I know that's what I'm going to be doing after the show here. I found a place that does fish fry late, so I'm going to be doing that as soon as we're off the air here, going and checking that place out. So that'll be a good time. That'll be a fun time, and it'll be probably one of the first fish fries I have had in years, because they really weren't any places that did them late on Fridays where I used to live. And here, we're right on the river, so it's a little bit of a bigger thing. But I'll be going and doing that here. I know the place, and it's right around the corner. So, and even if I can't get to that place, there are a couple places that are even closer that I can probably get to as well. I just don't know if they go late. So, and I do want to make sure that I still reward people who come and watch and want to chatter in the live chat. It's just, I don't want to say, hey, the only time I'm going to come back and dedicate 15 minutes to doing live chat is on a night when you could be out meeting a girl and making a new family, having kids and stuff like that. So yeah, we're moving that to Monday. We will do another segment of the Ferengi Rules of Acquisition, and that segment is moving to Friday. Actually, I might do that one to Tuesday, and we might do Twitter Trending on Friday, because I know that is the least popular one. It's something I like to do, but I know that's the least popular one. And really, honestly, all that Twitter Trending has been on Tuesday nights has been WWE Next and what's the other? Dallas 911, stuff like that. So I want to see if there's something different coming in on Friday nights. But that is enough behind the scenes stuff. We've got a lot to go over here today, and I want my fish fries. So let's get into the news. Let's get started, and we will start today with the Dow, as we always do, which the weekly losing streaks have come to an end at this point. We have a winning week, surprisingly. The Dow closing at 33 at 390.97. That is up 387.4 points after a slight rise this past Thursday, rather. So looks like it's looking up here. Some good financial news coming off of here, but there's still some hard financial news that's coming as well. So we will be talking about that and what happens there, looking in at your Bitcoin. We can live chat up so I can react to what it is that you guys are doing. Ron Helton says, Bakhmut has fallen. Ukrainians in retreat. Okay, that's actually going to be breaking. We might have to update some of the stories that I have on the stack, because just a couple of minutes ago when I was looking at that, it hadn't quite fallen yet, but it was surrounded. Grant says, listen here, Jack. I heard about them trains from Booty Judge, and I don't want to be no part of that. Grant says, what do you mean? We can't get you to read the hard R anymore? Well, you never could, because I am cautious to YouTube. But no, you still can. We're moving it to Monday. So we'll join in for that. Looking at your Bitcoin. The Bitcoin, where's my Bitcoin? There it is. Yeah, the Bitcoin, oddly enough, at the beginning of trading from last night, took a sheer significant drop off and just stayed steady throughout the rest of the day. So the good news is it is still worth 22,339 US inflated dollars and 10 inflated US cents. But the bad news is that if you are saving some money into Bitcoin, it fell off 1,129 US dollars and 10 inflated US cents. 4% as the spike downward before steadying off and holding off for the rest of the day. So that's where we see coming out of the Bitcoin. That is going to be some cause for concern, especially in the short term, because I do see some big drops coming off of this, especially when we look in at the gas. Well, I told you guys for the past couple weeks when we started to see tick ups coming off here that there's probably going to be a tick up in gas coming from you too. It hit where I live. Gas went up 10 cents here today at the station I'm going to, and also in the Madison area, it looks like it jumped up another 10 cents there too. The Quick Trip on the west side, east side, entering the Isthmus on the north side are all at 330. There is one that is still at 320, but that's bound to come up as well. The Amoco on the Isthmus is remaining at 316, which it did from yesterday, but the BP coming to the other end of the Isthmus is at 330. So the other BP going out on the south side is at 340. So if you haven't topped off yet and the gas prices haven't hit you, it does look like they are coming. So go and top off. I'm telling you right now. Top off now before it gets any worse than this, and we will continue to watch this and see where this goes. Let's grab one from CNBC. Yes, I will remember that when we get to the Ukraine segment, Ron. Remind me again. Because we will look at that. Stocks close higher Friday. Dow breaks 4-week losing streak as 10-year Treasury yield retreats. Live updates from Tanaya Makil and Hakyung Kim. Stocks rose Friday as Treasury yields eased from their recent highs, and investors weighed the cumulative impacts from Fed rate hikes already implemented and digested this week. Comments from the central bank say the Dow rose 387.4 points, or 1.17%. The S&P climbed 1.61%, and the Nasdaq gained 1.97%. The yield on the 10-year Treasury note dipped below the 4% threshold. Traders have been watching the 4% as the key level in the 10-year that could trigger another down move in stocks at times this week. When the 10-year rate rose above that point, stocks retreated. So, I mean, it's not good. And remember, by the way, and I will always remind people of this, Investors Business Daily, CNBC, MarketWatch, Markets.com, and every other investing newspaper and magazine that we read from on this program all said that the world was starting to collapse. When the 10-year Treasury yield approached 2% without a GDP to back it up, that means that they're aggressively trying to get these bonds out into people's hands to try to make sure that they don't have to tax you to death coming off of this. They're desperate to get you, and they're trying to lure you into a government bond, saying, hey, look, hey, 4%, come on. No, this is the highest the bond has been for a while. The 10-year Treasury is a benchmark rate that influences mortgage and car loans, so a breakout in yield could ripple through the economy. Well, it's a benchmark rate that says how desperate the government is for money, is what it is. The stock market is very sensitive to bond yields at this point and looking for some respite. In recent upward moves in yields, said Yoon Yu Ma, BMO Wealth Management Chief Investment Strategist, there's a nervous anticipation to upcoming data releases for jobs and inflation. After the difficult readings last month, the market is unlikely to have sustained traction until data points resume a cooling trend. So, that is what we have coming for that. And from the Daily Wire, a follow-up to what we said we're talking about yesterday in the housing market. Daily Wire, home prices fell year over year for the first time in a decade, but there's a massive catch. From Ben Ziesloff, yeah, because you're paying out the ass for your mortgage rate. Median prices fell year over year for the first time since February 2012, but elevated mortgage rates are still rendering properties less affordable for prospective buyers. The typical home in the U.S. sold for approximately $350,200 in February 2023, marking a 0.6% decline since the same month last year, according to the data released on Thursday by a real estate brokerage, Redfin. The typical monthly mortgage payment has nevertheless surpassed $2,500 as interest rates rise across the economy. Prices falling from a year ago is a milestone because it hasn't happened since the housing market was recovering from the 2008 subprime mortgage crisis. But it's not surprising, and in many ways it's welcome. Redfin Deputy Chief Economist Taylor Marr commented, home prices skyrocketed so much over the last few years that they were likely to come down once rates rose from historic lows. The mortgage rates rising to the 7% range was the straw that broke the camel's back, dampening home buying demand and leading to sellers asking less for their home. Rates for a 30-year fixed approached 6.7% as of March of 2023, after nearing 7.1% in November 22. According to data from government-backed mortgage company Freddie Mac, mortgage rates generally remained below 3% during the lockdown-induced recession, but started to rise as the Federal Reserve hiked the target federal funds rate to combat inflationary pressures, thereby applying upward pressure to interest rates. Median home sale prices previously increased from $322,600 in the second quarter of 2020 to $467,700 in the fourth quarter of 2022, according to data from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Costs plateaued in the second half of last year as mortgage rates soared. Homeowners who acquired mortgage rates at low rates over the past several years have reason to avoid selling their properties, with the exception of the fact that they're probably losing their asses on the payments for buying the inflated house. They may not be losing it so much on the interest rate if they locked in at the low rate, but they're losing their asses on the principal. A phenomenon which could limit the number of houses on the market and decrease affordability for buyers. Redfin noted that mortgage applications have now declined to their lowest levels in 3 decades. Yeah, because 7% is unsustainable for most of us in the middle class. And that's plain and simple. That's simple math and simple logic. So, who could have seen this coming? We'll see, and we'll see who loses their homes as this comes out of this too, especially if gas comes back and spikes one more time. All right, we are going to talk about the main news of the day. We are done with our finance. Before we get into the Greek train tragedy here, I want to talk about this, because this, honestly, I think is important to what's happening politically and culturally. Now, I'm going to lead off with what I'm about to say by saying that I am probably the most anti-Groyper person that you will meet that doesn't vote to the left. I'm sure those morons over on the left side of the aisle are even more anti-Groyper than me, but as far as people who typically tend to and trend to vote Republican, sometimes with a very, very, very sour taste in my mouth, by the way. Brian Style, talking about you. I still think that this is tremendously stupid. This is probably one of the dumbest things that CPAC could do. And when I talked about it on Twitter, when I quote tweeted this back out, I said, we're getting 4 more years of that stupid fucking house plan, or excuse my language, that stupid house plan, aren't we? Because they're going to do crap like this. I really should watch my language. There's the occasion that some of you guys might have your kids in the room, and I do apologize for that. I've tried to do very well with this, but this is so stupid. This is beyond stupid. Let's read the statement from Matt Schlapp, who is the CPAC chairman. We removed Nick Fuentes from his attempt to attend our conference. His hateful, racist rhetoric and actions are not consistent with the mission of CPAC. We are pleased that our conference welcomes a wide array of conservative perspectives who range from give tax breaks to the billionaires so they can finance wars across the world to give breaks to the religious people so they can encourage us to make war against Muslims across the world. Wide array of conservative perspectives from people of different backgrounds, but we are concerned about the rise in anti-Semitic rhetoric or Jew hatred in our country and around the globe, whether it's in the corridors of power and academia or through the online rantings of bigots like Fuentes. All right, let's talk about this. Now, the last half of the statement I agree with. I think that Nick Fuentes adds nothing to the conversation. In fact, there are times that I actually think that he may actually be a Democrat in disguise, coming out here trying to make people like Matt Schlapp and Charlie Kirk look bad for being in association with them. I don't trust Nick Fuentes as far as I can throw him, which oddly enough is pretty far because he's a little guy. He's a little guy. With that being said, there are people out there who worship Nick Fuentes as a false prophet religiously. And these are people who plan to vote for your conference. These are people who are given the choice between vote Republican or stay home. These are not people who, you're not going to lose these people to the Democrats. I'm going to tell you right off the bat. But they might stay home if you're doing crap like this because, for very obvious reasons, they see you as not representative of them. And the worst part of this is people like Schlapp and Charlie Kirk and Nikki Haley sat together and made the conscious decision to reject Nick Fuentes from the circle and the people who follow him from the circle. And they did that not to appease to other conservatives. They did that to appease to Democrats. People who are never going to vote for you in a million, billion, trillion years is who are you are looking to appease when you do things like this. You could come out and take up a socialist mantra as a Republican, and MSDNC and the people who you're trying to appease by doing this are still going to say that you're a hateful, racist, Nazi bigot. What did you gain by this other than telling a large swath of people who already have socialistic leanings to stay home? I'll tell you what you gained. You gained nothing from this. And we are getting 4 more years of that dumbass Biden, aren't we? When you do crap like this. Alright, that's my rant. My rant is over. Let's read one here from our friends over at NPR. A Greek train driver was told to ignore a red light before a head-on crash killed 57. And this is from Juliana Kim, and NPR will tell you. They're here to tell you that they need their donations. Remember, NPR just had to lay off hundreds of people. So they need our money, comrade. The ad revenue and the taxpayer subsidy is not holding them up. Hit that donate button. They need our money, comrade. It doesn't matter if you can't afford to keep groceries on the table. You need to donate to NPR so they can tell you that this train derailment requires Democrat attention, and the one in East Bumcrap, Ohio, that votes for Trump does not. NPR, never bending reality, National Progressive Radio. Let's see what it is that they have to say. Greek authorities released a new recording on Thursday that shed light on what may have caused one of the country's worst railway wrecks in history. In the audio, a station manager appears to instruct a driver to pass the red signal before the train collided head-on with another on Tuesday night, local time, near the city of Larissa in northern Greece, according to Greek news media. At least 57 people have died as a result of the crash, and 48 remain in the hospital, including 7 who are being treated in intensive care units as of Friday morning. The station master has already been arrested and charged with manslaughter by negligence prior to the recording. Initially, the 59-year-old Hellenic train employee denied any wrongdoing and blamed the incident on a technical error. But investigators found evidence that the station manager failed to switch the rail line before a passenger train and a freight train wound up heading toward each other on the same tracks. Later, Greek authorities said the station master admitted to the mishandling the situation. A passenger train carrying more than 350 people was heading from Athens to Thessaloniki, Greece's second largest city, on the day of the crash. That's where the Thessalonians are from, I believe. Many of the passengers were students returning from Carnival, a 3-day festival that precedes the religious season of Lent, according to the Associated Press. Meanwhile, Greece's public media agency, ERT, reported that the freight train likely carried construction materials such as heavy steel plates. The trains collided head-on at a combined speed of 100 miles an hour, as the passenger train was exiting a tunnel under a highway in the municipality of Tempe close to midnight local time. The country's transport minister, Kostas Karamanlis, resigned the next day, saying the country's railway was in a state that does not suit the 21st century and that his efforts to improve it were not enough to prevent such an accident. So, F's in the chat, by the way, and I'm going to throw one in there too. Oh, capital F for this one. F's in the chat for the people that did pass away. 57 dying from something like this in a 100-mile-an-hour crash in a train. 57 souls lost due to something like this. And that's terrifying. That's horrifying. I hate to see something like this. But as you can see, I can see also where the administration was doing very, very wrong things. From ABC, station manager in deadly head-on train collision faces manslaughter charges from Meredith Deliso. A station manager faces a manslaughter charge following a deadly high-speed train collision that killed dozens of people in central Greece, his attorney said on Thursday. At least 57 people have been confirmed dead and more than 80 others injured in the head-on collision between a freight train and a passenger train Tuesday. In Tempe, near the city of Larissa, officials said the death toll has continued to rise in the wake of the fire crash. About 350 people were on board. We saw that in the other one. Let's see. Greek Prime Minister Kyriakos Mitsotakis said on Wednesday that the incident was mainly due to tragic human error. The 59-year-old Larissa station manager was arrested following the deadly crash and has since been charged with disruption of public transport safety, manslaughter, and bodily injuries by negligence, his lawyers told reporters outside the courthouse on Thursday. The station manager, who could face up to life in prison for the manslaughter charge, has not been publicly identified. He has until Saturday to prepare his defense, his lawyers told reporters. Now, if this is as true and presented, then yes, he should be down for manslaughter. Because this is serious. And I think he's going to get hit with it too. I think that they are going to, I think they'll throw the book at him. They need to for something like this. But of course, our president, who can't be bothered to deal with people who didn't vote for him, has this to say. On behalf of the American people, man, Jill and I send our deepest condolences to the families of the victims who lost their lives in the tragic train accident in Greece. We wish those injured a quick and full recovery, man. With Courtney Lynn pointing out the obvious, is this a joke? Please tell me this is a joke right now. President Brandon and his team making a statement about train accidents in other countries, but ignoring the daily train disasters at home, including the one who displaced thousands of people. And some other things that because the kids are watching, can't read. And the simps. Also the simps. Barbara with the mask emojis. Joe Biden is a good, kind, and caring man. With a coffee mug. I love it when I wake up in the morning and Joe Biden is president. And of course the usual hangers-on who do nothing but sit here and talk about pay off our student debts. From the Daily Wire. My big fret Greek train wreck. Oof. Accurate, but oof. DeWine, the president needs to come to East Palestine. Biden, I'll be out there at some point, man. Come on. I bet you he goes to Greece before he goes to East Palestine. You want to put bets on that? That wouldn't even surprise me at this point. Once again, this administration hates you openly. And is still probably going to honk their way back into 4 more years. Well, it's probably not going to have to be honk when we see stupid crap like what Matt Schlapp did for the CPAC. This is from Hank Berrien. The same day, Ohio GOP Governor Mike DeWine declared that President Biden should go to East Palestine to visit residents affected by Norfolk Southern train derailment. Biden responded to queries about visiting the area, dismissing the idea of visiting there in the immediate future. The president needs to come. The people want to see the president. He should be there. DeWine told Fox and Friends, I just think now is the time. The president needs to come and it's important. But asked by reporters whether he intended to visit East Palestine, Biden responded, I've spoken with every official in Ohio, Democrat and Republican, on a continuing basis. I'll be out there at some point, man. I can't go there right now. I gotta go see Greece, man. I hear you can get good olives there. I like olive oil. Some more news on that from Axios. EPA orders Norfolk Southern to test for dioxins in Ohio train derailment. From Shauna Chen. The Environmental Protection Agency on Thursday ordered freight train operator Norfolk Southern to test for toxic pollutants that could have been released as the result of the company's decision to burn vinyl chloride from cargo on its derailed train in East Palestine, Ohio. Really? You're ordering the operator to do that? Weeks, by the way, after you said it was safe for people to go back there. Hey, EPA administrator, maybe you should go in there and drink the water from the taps. Now, I'm not necessarily in disagreement that Norfolk Southern should be testing this. Don't get me wrong when I say this, but don't you think you should have done that before you started sending people to go back and live there again? I feel like the timeline is off here. Norfolk Southern had at the time said that the burning cargo was necessary to prevent the threat of explosions from the hazardous materials in the train, but has since faced heightened scrutiny over the move and its possible impacts on the surrounding community and environment. The EPA said that monitoring for indicator chemicals at the site suggests the probability of dioxin contamination is low. tell that to people who feel dizzy when they go into their houses, but made the decision to mandate testing out of an abundance of caution. Again, like you should have done before you started sending people to go back and live there, you morons. The EPA's order, made almost a month after the train derailed, mandates testing for dioxins, which the agency considers are persistent organic pollutants because they take a long time to break down once released into the environment. Again, probably should have done that before you sent people to go back and live there. I think that would have been a smart thing to do. Here's one that I do not buy. From The Guardian. A leaked audio reveals U.S. rail workers were told to skip inspections as Ohio crash prompts scrutiny to industry. Alright. In a leaked audio heard by The Guardian, a manager for one of the U.S.'s largest rail companies can be heard explaining to a former carman that they should stop tagging rail cars for broken bearings. The manager says doing so delays other cargo. Now, having been in this industry, I'm not going to tell you that I don't believe that this happened. I have worked around service advisors that are in a hurry. I have worked around fleet managers that are in a hurry. And I've worked around fleet managers telling service advisors that they're in a hurry. The fact that this may or may not have happened passes the smell test to me. But see, number one, nobody else covered this. No, CNN, which, by the way, this is damning to the big business people who are trotting down on the little guy that we hate. Or the little guy that we love, rather. Fox. This is damning to the union. The Daily Wire. This is damning to progressives. Everybody else could have covered this if this was real. But this was just happened to be heard by The Guardian, and they provide nothing in this. So, I'm going to come back out and say, don't buy it. Doesn't pass the smell test to me. The disclosure comes as federal agencies investigate the derailment in East Palestine. A wheel bearing failure was cited as the cause of the crash in a preliminary report released by the National Transportation Safety Board. In late 2016, Stephanie Griffin, a former Union Pacific carman, went to her manager with concerns that she was getting pushback for tagging or reporting for repair rail cars. Her manager told her it was okay to skip inspections. Griffin asked the manager if he could put this in writing. That's weird, said the manager. We have 56 other people who are not bad ordering stuff out there. You're definitely not going to get in trouble for it. Griffin said he refused to bad order cars for bad wheel bearings. My boss took issue with it because it increased the dwell time. When that happened, corporate offices would start berating management to release the cars. Look, I have worked on a school bus fleet where at least 40% of the fleet was red tagged down for repairs. But when you're involving families, kids, and stuff like that, managers understand. They do. They get frustrated, but they understand. I don't buy a word of this. Not even a little. But hey, the Guardian's saying that they heard it. They won't provide it for you, but they heard it. And I would change my tune if I heard it. Let's see. Independent testing in East Palestine echoes EPA finds some air contaminants. But don't worry, it's totally safe to go back there. From Evan Bush. Independent researchers who crisscrossed East Palestine with air monitoring equipment said Friday they found levels of chemical contamination similar to measures previously reported by the EPA. Several key contaminants, including benzene and vinyl chloride, tested below levels of concern for the immediate exposures, meaning an exposure that lasts between 2 weeks and a year. The researchers say they found levels of at least one chemical acrolein that could pose a longer-term concern and warrants additional monitoring as the cleanup continues in East Palestine following the train derailment and chemical fire. The academic research, hey, Lucas here, led by a scientist from Carnegie Mellon, and Texas A&M was completed using extremely sensitive instruments that can identify thousands of chemical compounds, the team said in a news conference. And yet they keep telling people, oh no, it's totally fine, go back home. So, that is our rail segment for the day. If I had family, if I lived in East Palestine, I wouldn't have gone back. I can tell you that right off the bat. And I'm typically not one who jumps away from risk. But there's a difference between being risky and being outright stupid. And I don't know that I would have gone back at this point. And if I did, the first time I breathed in and said, oh man, I feel dizzy, I'd have been back out of there. Alright, let's talk Russia. We'll talk Russia for a little bit, and then we will go into government officials behaving badly. Russian billionaires who shop for U.S. property with Hunter and dined with Joe dodge sanctions. From Stephen Nelson. 2 Russian billionaires who have managed to dodge U.S. sanctions over Moscow's year-old invasion of Ukraine went property shopping with Hunter Biden, dined with then Vice President Joe Biden, and discussed favors they might swap, sources tell the Post. Sources unnamed, of course. I'm not gonna detract from the Guardian and then come back and watch the New York Post do the same thing without calling them out on it. New details of Joe and Hunter's association with Yelena Baturina and Vladimir Yevtushenko flesh out tantalizing clues from the first son's abandoned laptop. The sources spoke with the Post this week after the duo was yet again spared a fresh batch of sanctions announced by the Treasury Department on Friday. I think it's very fishy, one source who had first-hand knowledge of the business relation between Hunter and Yevtushenko, who is sanctioned by the UK and Australia, but not the US. I think he should be sanctioned, Michael McFaul, a former US ambassador to Russia under President Obama, told the Post of Yevtushenko, estimated by Forbes to be worth $1.7 billion US. I don't understand why he has not been. Yevtushenko, whose Sistema business empire until recently included Russian rocket and radar maker RTI and drone maker Kronstadt, admitted last year he met with Hunter for breakfast at the Ritz-Carlton in Manhattan on March 14, 2012, but denied any further contact. However, emails, calendar entries from Hunter's former laptop show that they were set to meet again on January 27th, 2013, for dinner at DC's Cafe Milano before looking at commercial real estate development the next day near Dulles in Northern Virginia. Well, who's shocked at this point? I'm not shocked. One hand washes the other. Alright, so I don't typically go and take links, so out of the chat, but because it's Ron Helton, I'm going to make the exception for this. There's a video link for the U.S. Merc, trainer of Ukrainians there with Judge Napolitano earlier this afternoon. And I might actually have to change up some of what we're doing here. So,
what is your view of how the battle is going? The perception here in the West is that Russia's progress is...
Alright, let's get this back started from the beginning. And let's get this going.
What is your view of how the battle is going? The perception here in the West is that Russia's progress is slow but inexorable.
It is slow. It is steady. Essentially, today, Bakhmut fell. It hasn't quite been called, but bridges are being blown across the river on the west side.
Now that is news, Matt. It's 9 o'clock here in the East Coast, so you're giving us some hot news from the ground. I'm assuming you have your sources, and you wouldn't be saying this to us if you didn't honestly believe it to be so.
Right. I mean, there's always the fog of war, so I'm hesitant to call it 100%. But from what I'm reading of accounts from people who were there and what I'm hearing, It's essentially done now, and bridges are being blown on the west side of the city, which is the city that the Ukrainians would be accessing the city from. So if they blow in the bridges, presumably they've pulled out the forces and don't plan on getting back into the city too
This
much.
is a major setback for President Zelensky, is it not?
I think it was I mean, it's been coming. It's been known. I think people have been prepared for it for months. It was how long can they hold the city before it does fall? It was inevitable that it would fall. I don't know if it's going to be interpreted as a big setback for him. It's certainly going to hurt morale here, but I think people knew it was coming long enough because of as we said, the Russian progress has been slow but fairly steady, especially in Bakhmut.
So they're saying it's fallen. We'll look at what I have queued up for this first, and then I'll go look and see if I've got more news that it has in fact fallen. Let's get the music back up here. From Reuters, Russians pound access routes to Ukraine's besieged Bakhmut. From Leonard Benesato and Lisi Naisner. Russian troops and mercenaries rained artillery in the last access routes to the besieged Ukrainian city of Bakhmut on Friday, bringing Moscow closer to its first major victory in half a year after the bloodiest fighting of the war. The head of Russia's Wagner private army, speaking in a video recorded some 7 kilometers or 4 miles north of Bakhmut, said the city, which had been blasted to ruins, was now almost completely surrounded, with only one road still open for Ukraine's troops. Reuters observed intense Russian shelling of routes between west out of Bakhmut, an apparent attempt to block Ukrainian forces' access in and out of the city. A bridge in the adjacent town of Kromov was damaged by Russian tank shelling. Ukrainian soldiers were working to repair damaged roads, and more troops were heading towards the front line in a sign that Ukraine was not yet ready to give up the city. To the west, Ukrainians were digging new trenches for defensive positions. Russia's RIA, state news agency, released a video clip showing what it said were Wagner fighters walking by a damaged industrial facility. One fighter is heard saying Ukraine's army is destroying infrastructure in settlements near Bakhmut to prevent the Russian encirclement. The commander of Ukraine's ground forces, Alexander Siersky, visited Bakhmut on Friday for briefings with the local commanders on how to boost the defense capacity of frontline forces. Victory in Bakhmut, with a pre-war population of about 70,000, would give Russia the first major prize of a costly winter offensive. After it called up hundreds of thousands of reservists last year, it would say it would be a stepping stone to capturing the surrounding Donbas region, an important war aim. Again, there does not seem to be any desire to go past the Donbas region, but it does seem like the goal is to stay in the Donbas region. Let's actually get this up and see what it is that we're doing here. Let's get a map up. And yeah, even still, we're saying that they're close to encircling. And most of the mainstream news is telling us that it has not yet officially fallen at this point. But I do wonder, and we'll look into a little bit more of this here, at what point, and this being as a StarCraft player, at what point somebody comes in and hits the GG and ends the game. Let's have a look. See where this is. So this is Bakhmut. So we're out in the Luhansk region, above Donetsk, and this region here where they've already voted to stop being a part of Ukraine and start being a part of Russia. It looks like this is in the state, I believe is how they call it, of Donetsk. So, but still not beyond, with the exception of a few rockets gone into Kiev to probably soften up the forces and make sure that they can't come back out and do this. There doesn't, again, seem to be any indication that Russia wants to go past this region. And to be completely honest with you, there doesn't seem to be any indication that this region wants to be a part of Ukraine anymore either. Still like the disputed borders here. Disputed border around Crimea on both sides. But oddly enough, none here where they actually voted to not be a part of Russia anymore. Strange. And this doesn't appear like this is really that big of a city. They say it's 70,000 people. Put the satellite in here and have a look. I guess it is a bit more populated than you would have initially thought with just seeing the crossroads out of here. Yeah, I guess, yeah, there's a bunch of people here. Oh my goodness. So, that is what we have there. Ukraine says the city has little intrinsic strategic value, but that the huge losses there could shape the course of the war. It recaptured swaths of land in the second half of 2022, but its forces have now been on the defensive for 3 months. Again, the question comes out of here is, do they want to be a part of Ukraine or Russia? Because realistically, the intrinsic value here, I mean, it's not to bring Trek into this, even though we will be doing rules of acquisition at the end of the show again, but not to bring Trek too deep into this. There was really, in Trek lore, no intrinsic value for the Borg to take over Earth or Sector 001 either, except for the bodies. The billions and billions and billions of bodies that were both on Earth and in the surrounding systems. Think of what population growth has been just now, and then think about the fact that that's taking place 300 years later, with humanity having the ability to expand beyond the planet that was probably full by that point. Bodies are an intrinsic value, and if there were 70,000 people there that didn't want to be a part of Ukraine, that's intrinsic value. Units of the private military company Wagner have practically surrounded Bakhmut. Wagner boss Yevgeny Prigozhin said in a video that Reuters determined was filmed on a rooftop in a village on the north of the city center. Only one road is left. Pincers are closing. He called on Volodymyr Zelensky to order a retreat from Bakhmut to save his soldiers' lives. The camera panned to show 3 captured Ukrainians, a gray-bearded older man and 2 boys asking to be allowed to go home. The commander of a Ukrainian drone unit active in Bakhmut, Robert Bravdy, who goes by the name of Magyar, said in a video posted on social media that his unit had been ordered by the military to withdraw immediately. He said that he had been fighting there for 110 days. Volodymyr Nazarenko, deputy commander in the National Guard of Ukraine, told Ukrainian NV Radio that the situation was critical with fighting going on round the clock. They take no access counting losses and trying to take city by assault. The task of forces in Bakhmut is to inflict as many losses on enemy side as possible. Every meter of Ukrainian land costs hundreds of lives to enemy, he said. There are many more Russians here than we have ammunition to destroy. So, I guess it was me, and honestly, given the fact that we've gone on for a year on this, strategically, if I was a Russian commander, this is what I would do. I would encircle and force the military into a retreat, take the city, and then, with cameras everywhere, start saying, anybody who wants to leave can leave. We don't want dissidents here. If you don't want to be a part of Russia, get out. And see how many people stay and how many people leave. The problem with that is I don't think that would be good news for the Biden admin. I really don't. But that's where we are at for that. Let's grab one from the Associated Press. U.S. sending bridge launchers to Ukraine for spring fight. From Tarek Kopp. But Grant, is that adjusted for inflation? That's the question. And I think that number is still going to be higher, by the way. The U.S. announced the new $400 million military aid package for Ukraine on Friday. That for the first time includes armored vehicles that can launch bridges, allowing troops to cross rivers or other gaps, as Russian and Ukrainian forces remain entrenched on opposite sides of the Dnieper River. The war had largely slowed to a grinding stalemate during the winter months, with Russia and Ukraine firing at each other from across the river. Both sides are expected to launch offensives as temperatures warm. But wait, I thought this was a strictly defensive war. What happened? I wish the RRC podcast was still on. I would love to listen to him talk about this. I would give anything to hear the R-rated conservative sit down and talk about this. Although I'm probably going to get a little bit of that on Sunday morning, or Sunday night, depending on which time I call him. I'll text him before I go. I'll try and see if I can goad him into the Discord and we can listen to him all at once, but you guys have to promise to mute it, or to stay mute if we get the rant. I'll see if I can do it. We'll have a mini private RRC podcast. I think that would be baller as hell. This round of aid will be drawn from existing U.S. weapon stockpiles so it can arrive in Ukraine faster. And then, Raytheon will go back and sell more no-bid contract stuff to refill the stockpiles. U.S. and allies are trying to rush additional support to Kiev to the best position for the intensified spring fighting. Again, with the exception of distraction, I don't see, and I will admit if I'm wrong, but I don't see any evidence that Russia wants to advance to Kiev. The armored vehicle launched bridge is a portable 60-foot folding metal bridge that is carried on top of a tank body. Providing that system now could make it easier for Ukrainian troops to cross rivers to get to Russian forces. But again, I thought this was a defensive thing. I didn't think we were doing an offensive. Because Ukraine also continues to face shortages of ammunition in the intense firefight, this aid package, like previous ones, includes thousands of replacement rounds, such as rockets for high-mobility artillery rocket systems, and 155mm howitzer rounds. This package also includes demolition munitions and equipment for clearing obstacles to help Ukraine break through dug-in lines. Why can't I have 155mm howitzer rounds? Why did they get them? I have a Second Amendment over here that guarantees that the government can't make a law that limits what I have, and yet I have a law that limits what I can have. What's the big deal? What gives here? Since Russia invaded the Ukraine over a year ago, the U.S. has sent more than $32 billion with a B in weapons and equipment. The U.S. is also roughly tripling the number of Ukrainian forces it is training on advanced battle tactics at a base in Germany to help them punch through entrenched Russian lines. But again, my question here is, why are we punching through entrenched Russian lines? Why are we not entrenching our own lines? This is supposed to be a defensive war. At the Grafin War Training Area, Ukrainian forces run through a 5-week course that prepares them to be a human meat shield. That prepares them to conduct advanced combined arms maneuvers with Bradley fighting vehicles. M109 Paladins, and Stryker armored personnel carriers. The first 600 Ukrainian troops completed the course last month, and 1,600 more are in training. I feel like this is appropriate. Don't worry, I won't crank this one up as loud as I did the wood chipper yesterday. Alright, and while we're in the midst of this here, I think we're actually a little bit too late for any of that. I should have done this at the beginning of the Associated Press article. We know what I was going for. Attorney General Merrick Garland makes unannounced trip to Ukraine. From Hannah Rabinovitz. A.G. Garland, for reasons unknown, because he's the chief law enforcement officer here, he doesn't do foreign diplomacy. For reasons unknown, made an unannounced trip to Ukraine on Friday. According to a Justice Department official, his second trip to the country, after Russia invaded a little more than a year ago. The trip was not announced for security reasons, the official said. There is nobody in the Russian military that's that stupid. Garland was invited to Lviv by the Ukrainian Prosecutor General, the official said, and joined President Vladimir Zelensky at the United for Justice conference. The official added that Garland held several meetings and reaffirmed our determination to hold Russia accountable for crimes committed in its unjust and unprovoked invasion against the sovereign neighbor. The trip comes nearly 2 weeks after Joe Biden made his first trip to Ukraine since the war began, and one of the several trips made by members of Biden's cabinet. Janet Yellen also recently made a trip to Ukraine to meet with Zelensky for reasons completely unknown, except to see where all of her money is going to. There is a War Pigs mashup in the related videos over on the other side that I'm gonna test that on the Clips channel and see if that goes copyright free. It might or it might not. Because I got the feeling we're gonna get some mileage out of that video, whatever we use. The AG went last to Ukraine in June and similarly committed the U.S. assistance in finding and prosecuting those who committed war crimes. But you're not a NATO official. You're also not a UN official. You are a U.S. official. You have no jurisdiction there to find and prosecute those who committed war crimes. During that trip, Garland announced that he was appointing Eli Rosenbaum, the top U.S. so-called Nazi hunter, to lead the Justice Department team to identify and prosecute war criminals. Why would you send a Nazi hunter? That person would be going on the opposite side. That guy would be arresting people who are on your side, ideologically. So he's over there. And this, by the way, is a good segue into government officials behaving badly. We've got a few of those. All right, government officials behaving badly, starting with a former government official. Former disinformation czar fundraises to launch defamation suit against Fox News. Well, get your egg emojis ready, or egg cartons, if you got them. Also from Olivia Rondeau. Nina Jankowicz, former Biden admin official who was slated to head the Department of Homeland Security's Disinformation Governance Board, otherwise known as the Ministry of Truth, to fight misinformation before resigning a month after taking the position, is pleading for financial support to sue Fox News for the alleged their malicious, reckless lies about her. In a Thursday video uploaded to YouTube with an accompanying GoFundMe, the former Ministry of Truth had announced the lawsuit. Is this the video? This is the video. But I want to do something different here. Just a second. I'm whispering like Biden. Alright, let's listen. I got this feeling this is going to be good.
My name is Nina Jankowicz. I'm asking for your financial support of a lawsuit I want to bring against Fox.
By the way, I know that this goes against what most of the people that follow me would, but I'm going to tell you right off, I would. I still would. I don't care how crazy this one is.
News for their malicious, reckless lies against me. A year ago today, I realized a lifelong dream and entered public service as a U.S. government official. I spent the better part of a decade working on both sides of the aisle to counter disinformation. I've published 2 books, and I've always been an advocate for free expression. The main thesis of my work is we can't fight disinformation simply by removing content or restricting speech. On March 2nd, 2022, I began a job leading a new entity within the Department of Homeland Security called the Disinformation Governance Board. My role was to make sure different entities across DHS were coordinated, to bring the latest research to bear in the department, and to help the department ensure that its policies about its existing counter-disinformation work were grounded in American values: privacy, civil rights, and civil liberties. That's all the board was. It didn't have the ability or the authority to act on its own.
No.
Baseless claims.
No, it didn't have the ability to act on its own. It turned around and made recommendations to the captive DOJ, who happens to just be in the same party, to go and do their dirty work for them.
Claims that the board was an Orwellian Ministry of Truth and I was President Biden's chief censor spread.
That's because that's what you were.
Even though the board had nothing to do with arbitrating or restricting speech. Fox News launched overly personalized, false, and incendiary coverage of me, mainstreaming online conspiracy theories to tens of millions of Americans. They lied about my role.
Was hired to police domestic social media use, period.
Is now the administration's official purveyor of truth.
They lied about and completely manufactured my past statements.
How chilling is it that this disinformation czar thinks it's okay for her to edit your speech?
They called me a liar.
Nina Jankowicz is a conspiracy theorist who wants all Americans to believe her twisted opinions and lies are facts. Was one of the biggest perpetrators and purveyors of disinformation in the entire country.
She read a bunch of lies somebody handed to her on a card because she's a useful idiot.
Where's the lie in that one, by the way? And I don't defend Tucker Carlson very often. And yeah, Ron, I will put her against the wall.
Called me crazy.
The far-left lunatic.
Feels so unhinged to me.
Put this insane person in front of a camera.
And they told their audience I was evil.
She's a very
Well, you are.
scary individual.
Attend a conservative event, and maybe you're really angry about the Biden administration on the internet. Maybe you'll lose your job. Maybe you'll even be put in jail.
I quickly started receiving violent threats as a result of this coverage. I was weeks away from...
Yeah, for those of you, by the way, who did disagree with her, don't do that. And yes, I know that there were some of them out there that did that, and not all of them were feds.
Becoming a mom. Fox didn't seem to mind.
She was the chief of spreading disinformation, and now she's the victim? She can dish it, but she can't take it. She got a couple mean tweets.
I resigned my position on May 18th. Fox seemed happy about that.
I just love political scalps. Don't you love when one side just takes a scalp?
But they still continued to lie about me.
Yeah, that probably also was not the proper thing to say, but Fox has controlled opposition too, by the way.
Mentioning me in most weeks for the rest of 2022.
Oh, they said she wasn't gonna come back.
We don't know where she is right now. Isn't that interesting?
She's cooking up some more misinformation.
Yes, exactly.
For establishing its own Ministry of Digital
sort of
Affairs.
ruse
Polish
or
officials said the
red
ministry
herring.
was
Hard to
able to
prevent
deal
us
our
from
system
talking
produces
about
censorship of
everything.
conservatives. She's an illiterate.
Fox News irrevocably changed my life when they force-fed lies about me to tens of millions of their viewers. Tens of thousands have harassed me online. Hundreds have violently threatened me. In addition to the deferral of my dream of serving my country, I've lost something irreplaceable: peace with my son during his first year in the world. Fox can't keep getting away with targeting Americans with their hateful rhetoric and lies. Trying to silence professionals doing their jobs is not journalism. It's vigilantism, and it's ruining lives. That's why I'm seeking justice. So,
Okay. What lives did you intend to ruin in your government disinformation board? With the ability to refer criminal prosecution to speech violations, which was your job. I read the mission statement on air, by the way. I sat in this chair back in the old studio and read the mission statement for the Government Disinformation Board. Your agency had a mission of ruining the lives of people who did not buy the last election or the COVID narrative. That was your mission statement.
please, donate what you can and share this with anybody who believes in fighting for the truth. Thank you so much for any help you can give.
She's complaining. She says that she's been killed by disinformation and that she's now under all sorts of threats. Do you feel sorry for the disinformation czaress, VDH?
I confess I don't.
Well, I don't feel sorry for you either. And that is still with me sitting here telling people, don't do that. Don't do that. We're better than that. And trust me, again, when I say, not all of the people that sent the violent threats, were feds. This bitch. Let's see. So, actually, we don't really have to go too much further into this because the majority of what this is Olivia Rondo paraphrasing the video. The good news, though, is even after a day, the GoFundMe created by Jankowicz has garnered $6,921 out of the $100,000 goal. And I don't know that it's going to get very much further than that. Treason against the First Amendment. All right. From the Blaze, we're going to be talking about the DC law. Actually, we're not going to talk about that because I've got that later in here. So let's actually move that down here. Instead, let's talk about Manchin. Party politics and out-of-control spending. Manchin calls out both Republicans and Democrats for worsening the national debt. Based. Joe Manchin called on his Republican and Democratic colleagues on Thursday to implement a compromise that would decrease the national debt. The lawmaker's remarks came after James Lankford recited President Washington's farewell address on the Senate floor, a tradition that the upper chamber has maintained for more than 160 years to commemorate the Founding Fathers' birthday. Manchin referenced the distaste Washington held for partisan factions, and as he exhorted Congress to address the national debt, which now surpasses $31.5 trillion US. Washington warned of the dangers of putting the will of a political party ahead of the will of the nation, Manchin commented. Washington warned us against the accumulation of debt and encouraged us to cherish public credit as a very important source of strength and security, and yet, here we are today watching our party politics and out-of-control spending threaten the very foundation of our great nation. The comments come as the federal debt ceiling, an arbitrary cap on the national debt established by Congress, exceeded the statutory limit of nearly $31.4 trillion earlier this year, prompting Yellen to launch extraordinary measures intended to fund the government through the early summer. President Brandon and Kevin McCarthy are presently engaged in the earliest stages of negotiation to address the debt limit and decrease long-term spending. Each have said that they will not consider reforms to Social Security and Medicare, raising questions as to whether meaningful spending cuts will be possible, since the two programs constitute nearly half of the federal budget. That's understandable, but there's a lot of stuff we can go after before we get there. And I do believe that both of these need to be addressed. But there's a lot of bullcrap that needs to be addressed before we get there. Manchin, widely regarded as a centrist, noted that excessive federal spending has been a problem. Under Republican and Democratic admins alike, former President Trump added $7.5 trillion to projected debt levels through his legislative agenda and executive orders, while President Brandon has added $5 trillion to projected debt levels, not considering the stimulus measures passed by both chief executives during the lockdown-induced recession, implies an added debt burden of $4 trillion for the former, $2.5 trillion for the latter. And I'm very happy about the fact that at least somebody's coming out and saying that it's a both sides problem. It absolutely is. When Bush was in office, we put a war on the credit card. When Obama was in office, we put healthcare on a credit card. When Trump was in office, we put COVID relief on the credit card. And when Biden was in office, we put, well, everything on the credit card. This is a problem for all of DC, and it needs to stop. Manchin also talking about Social Security and Medicare from USA Today. Manchin floats better program for future Social Security and Medicare beneficiaries. From Sarah Elbishy. Joe Manchin repeated his support Thursday to keep Social Security and Medicare intact amid worries about its long-term solvency, but said there might be a better program to consider for future beneficiaries. The West Virginia Democrat and key Senate swing vote indicated his opposition to Social Security and Medicare cuts, but in an interview on Fox News on Thursday, he didn't close the door on finding a different way to help future beneficiaries. Critics of Manchin, who is up for re-election in 2024, seized on the statement as evidence that he wants cuts. But the senator's office tried to quash that line of attack, saying Manchin continues to oppose cuts to present and future beneficiaries. Yeah, but they're going to run on just anything they can to get rid of this guy. They want to primary him from the left, and that makes me laugh. They want him primaried by his own party from the left because they think that they can take him in deep red West Virginia. And one thing that I hate to tell you, Democrats, is this man that you hate so much for allowing the filibuster to remain in place is your best chance ever of keeping a Democrat Senate seat in West Virginia. Hate to tell you, but good luck. If you think you know better than me, good luck. More Manchin. Manchin indicates opposition to Biden lands nominee over internal memo from Rachel Frazin. Joe Manchin is putting the future of one President Biden's nominees to the Interior Department in question. Manchin is indicating he's set to withdraw his support from Laura Daniel Davis, who Biden nominated to serve as Assistant Secretary of the Interior for Land and Minerals Management. Manchin heads the Senate's Energy and Natural Resources Committee, which has jurisdiction over the nominee. Democrats also have a one-seat majority on the panel. The senator's latest statement came in response to what he described as an internal memo that was mistakenly posted by the Interior Department to its website. In the document, Daniel Davis indicates agreement with a decision that Manchin described as the admin putting their radical climate agenda ahead of the needs of the people of Alaska and the United States. I will not support anyone who agrees with this type of misguided reasoning, he said. The document, which was viewed by The Hill, pertains to the department's decision-making in recent oil and gas lease sales off the coast of Alaska. In it, then Director of the Bureau of Ocean Management, Amanda Lepton, wrote that lowering the fees that companies have to pay to the federal government to recover oil and gas would be more likely to result in energy development and therefore more government revenue and greater energy security. Both of which are good things, by the way. Unless you're trying to keep people from being energy independent, of course. Lepton recommended against lowering the fees because of the serious challenges facing the nation from climate change and the impact of the GHGs, greenhouse gases from fossil fuels. Live in the pod, eat the bug, but make sure you eat the bug cold because you wouldn't want to have to use energy to warm it up. From the Associated Press, Biden willing to sign effort to block new DC crime laws. From Colleen Long, Mary Claire Jalonik, and Sung Min Kim. President Biden said Thursday he's willing to sign a Republican-sponsored resolution blocking new DC laws that could overhaul how the nation's capital prosecutes and punishes crime. In doing so, the president would be allowing Congress to nullify the city's laws for the first time in more than 3 decades. Biden's willingness to do so, despite earlier opposition from his White House, is linked to growing concern over rising crime both in the nation's capital and across the U.S. and comes amid relentless criticism from Republicans. One thing... Oh, that's Polk University hire. One thing the president believes in is making sure the streets of America and communities across the country are safe, said White House Press Secretary Polk University hire. That includes D.C. The district lacks the same rights as the states to make and amend laws. While Congress has allowed the city's residents some powers of home rule, it has retained veto powers over district government actions. District residents also do not have voting members of Congress. City officials have spent nearly 2 decades trying to redo Washington's criminal laws, including redefining crimes, changing criminal justice policies, and reworking how sentences should be handed down after convictions. The overhaul was approved late last year by the D.C. Council. It overrode a veto by Mayor Muriel Bowser, who had concerns over some of the changes. Then the Republican-controlled House decided to wade into the matter, claiming the district changes could contribute to already rising crime in D.C. The number of murders in 2021 was the highest in nearly 20 years, and make it easier for some criminals to get out of prison or evade punishment altogether. The resolution passed the House with some Democratic support and appears poised to clear the U.S. Senate on a bipartisan basis as well, perhaps as early as next week after Biden privately told senators he'd sign the measure. Overriding the changes, some Democratic senators said they support the measure too. Biden later tweeted that while he supported statehood for D.C., which is unconstitutional and should come with an impeachment charge, because he's literally coming out here and advocating for a vote on something that is clearly, explicitly written into the Constitution. I don't support some of the changes to D.C. Council put forward over the mayor's objections. such as lowering penalties for carjackings. He added, if the Senate votes to overturn what DC Council did, I'll sign it, man. The decision comes weeks before Biden is set to announce his re-election campaign as he works to formulate his messages to voters and fend off expected GOP attacks on the record. I have the hiccups. So, and this is, again, one of the powers that's actually explicitly granted out to Congress. The ability to govern in absentia to DC. It is federal land. That's why it can't have statehood. It is federal land. The only reason it actually has a city attached to it, and again, I do think that there may be a time to get the residential areas ceded back to Maryland. There it is. I almost said Maine. Let the residential lands be ceded back to Maine so those people have representation, or give them representation in Maine. Although I don't know how that would work with residency. Because I don't believe in taxation without representation. I don't believe in taxation, period. But I definitely don't believe in taxation without representation. However, people do choose to live there knowing that there is no representation for them. And it is explicitly stated in the Constitution that DC cannot have statehood so that one state doesn't have unfair advantage over the federal government over the other states. Some pushback to Biden from the Blaze. Effing amateur hour. Furious Democrats lash out at Biden for announcement on a radical DC crime law. From Chris Enlow. Democrats lashed out at President Biden on Thursday after he announced he would sign a bill overruling a radical overhaul of the DC criminal code. Bowser vetoed the bill, but the DC City Council overruled her veto because of the nature of the law, which significantly reduces penalties for certain felonies and violent crimes. Congress acted to use its constitutionally vested power to prevent the crime bill from taking effect. Last month, the House passed a resolution blocking the law. A sizable number of House Democrats supported the resolution, while most House Democrats opposed it. On Thursday, Biden told Senate Democrats that he would not veto the bill if and when the Senate approves it. Furious House Democrats blasted Biden for reneging on his support of DC's crime overhaul. Indeed, on February 6th, the Office of Management and Budget released a statement of administration policy voicing opposition to the House bill overruling DC's law. The effort to overturn the law, the statement claimed, is an example of how the District of Columbia continues to be denied true self-governance and why it deserves statehood, in spite of the fact that it's explicitly written in the Constitution that it can't be a state. While we work towards making DC the 51st state of our union, Congress should respect the District of Columbia's autonomy to govern its own local affairs, the statement added. Thus, by reversing its position, one House Democrat told The Hill, the White House effed this up royally. So a lot of us who are allies voted no in order to support what the White House wanted. And now we're being hung out to dry, one lawmaker said in a text message. Effing amateur hour, heads should roll over at the White House over this. That lawmaker added that other Democrats are extremely pissed at Biden. Other Democrats like Pete Aguilar, the number 3 House Democrat, and the Honorable and Venerable Alexandria Ocasio-Chavez have also publicly spoken out against Biden's decision. When the Senate finally does hold a vote, it will likely pass the bill because moderate Democrats, especially those up for re-election, have already said they would support it or leaning towards supporting it. And again, one of the big parts of this is where people stand on the defund the police action, because this is a major piece of funding to non-federalized police. The DC Metro Police, which would have the jurisdiction over this, is a non-federalized agency. And there's a big push to support federalized police. The FBI doesn't patrol the streets of DC. The DC Metro Police does. we've got some divide in the party. All right. We are done with government officials behaving badly, but we're going to talk a little bit more about government stuff here for a bit. Before we look at the Ferengi rule of acquisition and head out of here for the day, odds of U.S. debt default have already tripled this year, experts warn. From Thomas Barabi over at New York Post. The probability of an unprecedented U.S. default have more than tripled since the start of this year as Congress struggles to reach a new debt ceiling deal, according to a leading international finance firm. Analysts at MSCI have pointed to a noteworthy pickup in trading activity of U.S.-linked credit default swaps, or CDS, this year as Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and others warn the federal government is running out of money to cover its debt obligations. The implied probability of U.S. default hit 11.3% as of February 24th, up from just 3.3% at the start of the year, according to MSCI's analysis of CDS trading activity. The risk of U.S. default is higher now than it was at any point since the debt ceiling battle in 2013, the analyst said. The consequences of the potential default by the U.S. government extend beyond the immediate impact of the holders of treasuries. MSCI analyst said in a blog post, major market dislocation and a sharp slowdown in the economic activity would both be realistic possibilities. This is, by the way, part of the reason that they're trying to throw bonds out like they're candy. They're begging you to buy bonds at 4% interest. This is part of the reason is because getting more investor money into the U.S. would not save us from the default, but it would get some more money flowing. And it would also put more people, especially on the domestic side, at odds with people who are trying to block the debt ceiling increase. So, and obviously the odds are there because we've already run out of the money. And both sides are coming in and saying, no, we won't. But they have a plan. Republicans unveil new debt ceiling bill that would force White House to propose its own plan to cut spending. Why? You have the purse strings. Why? This is not the Biden authority. It is your authority to bring up the bill that has the spending cuts and demand that Biden sign it. Otherwise, he is the one who's blocking the debt ceiling increase. From Elizabeth Elkind. Thankfully, this has no dream of passing the Senate. A new Republican bill unveiled on Wednesday aims to force the White House to evenly match spending cuts to any increase of the U.S. debt limit. Due to decades of government waste and reckless spending, our nation's fiscal health is in crisis. Our national debt has surpassed a record-breaking $31 trillion. While wages have stagnated, leaving our families and farmers on Main Street to pay the bill, Iowa GOP Rep. Randy Feenstra, a member of the Ways and Means Committee, told Fox News Digital. He's introducing the Dollar for Dollar Deficit Reduction Act in coordination with Wyoming GOP Senator John Barrasso. Chair of the Senate Republican Conference, Barrasso is expected to introduce a similar bill in the Senate at a later date that has no plan of passing. Again, you have the authority to make the spending cuts. And then the ball's in the Biden court, not yours. What are you doing? Propose spending cuts. You have the power of the purse. Do you not understand how our government works? You're in the government. Some good news, especially for people who get very lethargic at this time of year. Permanent daylight savings time bill gets renewed push in Congress. From Christina Zhao over at NBC. Marco Rubio has reintroduced legislation to make daylight savings time permanent across the country, which he says would end the antiquated practice of changing the clocks twice a year. This ritual of changing time twice a year is stupid. Locking the clock is overwhelming bipartisan support and popular support. This Congress, I hope that we can finally get this done, Rubio said in a statement on Thursday. The bill, called the Sunshine Protection Act, passed the Senate last year by unanimous consent, meaning no senators opposed it, but it stalled in the House and expired at the end of the last session of Congress. If it is enacted, daylight savings time, which begins in March and ends in November, would become permanent year-round in the U.S. American Samoa, most of Arizona, Guam, Hawaii, and the Northern Mariana Islands, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands do not observe daylight savings time and would not be required under the legislation. Several senators in both parties co-sponsored the original bill, including Jim Langford, Ron Wyden, Cindy Hyde-Smith, Rick Scott, Tommy Tuberville, and Ed Markey. Alabamians have overwhelmingly expressed their support for the Sunshine Protection Act, and I promised them that I'd continue pushing to do away with the outdated practice of adjusting our clocks twice a year. Tuberville said in a statement shared by Rubio's office. It's time for America to move forward and stop falling back. Congress should listen to people and make daylight savings time permanent. Yeah, I'm actually kind of on board. I think that'd be a good thing. Is Erin Brockovich, by the way, a real person? I've never seen the movie, but I keep seeing her pop up, especially around stuff happening with East Palestine. Will this actually pass? We don't know. We'll see. I think it's got a better chance at this point. Alright, from KLTV out of Tyler, Texas. All Walmart stores in Portland set to permanently close. From Fox 12 staff and Emily Van der Riet. Yeah, I remember that there was a Julia Roberts movie called Erin Brockovich. I just didn't realize that was based on a real person, again, because I've never seen the movie. The last two Walmart stores within Portland city limits will be closing later this month, the company announced. The locations at 1123 North Hayden Meadows Drive and 4200 Southeast 82nd Avenue in Eastport Plaza will both close March 24th. Walmart says they're closing the stores because they were not meeting financial expectations, because the economy is in the tank, and online retailing exists. The decision to close these stores was made after a careful review of overall performance, a Walmart spokesperson said. We consider many factors including current and projected financial performance, location, population, customer needs, and the proximity of other nearby stores when making these difficult decisions. After we decide to move forward, our focus on our associates and the transition, which is the case here. People who live near the stores that are closing say the closure is going to have a big impact on low-income shoppers. It is. You're right, it is. And there's gonna be food desert. That's actually a thing. But my question here, and I don't know the neighborhood because I've never set foot in Portland. My question here is, are these in neighborhoods where they're getting robbed a lot? Interesting. Maybe I'll have to go watch that movie. Make it the 7th movie I've ever seen. Safeway is the go-to store if I have to, but it's 3 times the price I would spend here, Walmart shopper Amanda Paul said. What are we going to do? You've got to go further than you have to spend gas money. Might as well pay for it at Safeway at this point. According to a Walmart spokesperson, the pharmacy staff will work with customers to transfer their prescriptions to other locations before the store closing date. All employees at the 2 locations will have the option to transfer to others nearby locations. There will be still more than a dozen Walmart stores in the Portland metro area outside of Portland's city limits. So, again, this isn't going to be an be-all end-all to Portland, which the metro area is massive. But to have it inner city, I can probably see why they don't necessarily want to do that. I don't know if there is a Walmart in inner city Milwaukee. I think they're all out in West Allis and Wauwatosa. I don't think there is one in the city limits, not that I've ever seen anyway. And I know there's always been the push to get them out of other major urban areas. I mean, there's the Walmart in Eau Claire and La Crosse, but those are tiny cities compared. The Walmart in Kenosha is gone. They moved it out to Summers. Summers? Is that? Yeah, that's Summers. Yeah, they moved it out to Summers across Highway 31 because they wanted it away from a very low, at the time, very low income neighborhood that's since gentrified. This is not a new thing, and yeah, you can still go out to Walmart and everything. But as a person who stopped shopping at Walmart because of the insane things that they've said on a political nature that I don't want to spend the money there, I mean, it does wind up being worth it to go back and spend the extra money elsewhere. Honestly, I'm not going to lie about that. I don't miss it, and I will agree completely that the prices are always lower at Walmart. There's usually not as much of a selection. They don't have as much stuff, like as many kinds of stuff. They've got the same stuff and it costs less, but like Rice-A-Roni is a good example of that. Whereas you'd go down to the Pick and Save when I was younger, and you'd get just about everything on the Rice-A-Roni catalog. You went to Walmart, they only had 4 different flavors. But they were usually 30 cents cheaper a box. So yeah, this will have an impact. It definitely will. But realistically, and again, my question is there a crime factor to this that they just don't want to say? Are they afraid of it getting burned again in the next riot that they probably are going to have happen next year? That's, by the way, a real possibility that we're going to have more BLM riots next year. We'll see. From the New York Post, Ghislaine Maxwell appeals sex trafficking convictions over fatal errors. From Ben Feuerhard. Convicted predator Ghislaine Maxwell formally appealed her sex trafficking conviction Tuesday, arguing prosecutors and the judge made a series of fatal errors during her case in the Manhattan Federal Court. Maxwell's attorney, Arthur Adela, said in a statement on Tuesday that the Justice Department has prosecuted his client as a proxy for Epstein to satisfy public outrage over the case in the aftermath of his sudden in-custody death. He accused the government of working with Epstein accusers to develop new allegations out of faded, distorted, and motivated memories. The Manhattan Federal Court jury convicted Maxwell on 5 of 6 counts in December 2021, including sex trafficking on minors. Ron is saying that it does appear that theft is a major reason for Walmart closing those stores, which is a possibility. And like I said, they're not abandoning the metro, just the inner city part itself. She was sentenced to 20 years in June of 2022. Another Maxwell attorney, John Leventhal, said the previous court filings, the appeal would focus on 5 points, raising issues pertaining to statutes of limitations, non-prosecutions, agreement, juror misconduct, and a post-verdict hearing and sentence. In a statement Tuesday, Idala expanded on the points. And you know what the worst part is? This woman is a predator. but I would not be surprised at all if she walks. Really, at this point, I wouldn't. Because there were a lot of shady things happening in that. And as horrible as a person as Ghislaine Maxwell was, yes, there was an air of the fact that this was a proxy prosecution for Jeffrey. I don't want to see her appeal get to it, but legally, there's a... I don't want to throw 50-50 odds, but I know you're close. I would say there's better than 40% chance that she walks on appeal. Man who sent videos of adults sexually abusing infants to FBI agent sentenced to 19 years. He's not going to make it 19 years. Throw him in Gen Pop and tell everybody what happened. A man from Fayetteville was sentenced to 235 months in prison, recently having pled guilty to the production of child pornography after being caught in an undercover FBI sting. Court documents show the man sent videos of the sexual abuse of infants to an undercover FBI agent and was in possession of child porn, including videos which he engaged in sexual chats with underage girls. Make sure that the Gen Pop audience knows all of this. According to the DOJ, David Leon Autry communicated with an FBI agent out of Albany over the instant messaging application Kik, which is probably part of the reason that that went by the wayside. I used to use that a lot, by the way. The FBI agent joined a group on the app known to be frequented by those who are sexually interested in children and made a fictitious post about having a 9-year-old daughter. Autry subsequently sent the message, any pics, vids to the undercover agent before explaining that he prefers children in the age range of 6 to 13 and he watches a large volume of child porn. Again, make sure that that is well known in Gen Pop when he gets there. We gotta send this one off. We won't do the wood chipper this time. I've got something better for you. Because, well, you're never gonna see the outside of a prison cell again. I promise. And not because you got life imprisonment. But the Gen Poppers will make sure that you never do. I am still getting mileage out of that. I clicked that link in like the 10th episode of Contemporary, and I still use it to this day. $770 episodes in. Well, guys, I'm hungry. So, we've still got a couple more to finish off with, but we're not going to do it. We'll save them for Monday. Because I might even go a little bit early on Monday just to make sure we get it all done. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. It'll depend on how my Monday goes and if I wind up having to work or not. But the last thing that we are going to do, because it's Monday, is we look at the Ferengi rules of acquisition, or Friday rather, is we look at the rules of acquisition. Yes, we are getting a bonus rules of acquisition this week because next week we start doing live chat on Mondays. So, as we do now, continuing on Friday from here on out, we look at the rules of acquisition made popular in the Star Trek series Deep Space Nine as the Ferengi species was fleshed out to have a full culture, religion, and not be mustache-twirling bad guys that were poorly executed in the first appearance and turned into a laughingstock through the series. So, we have gone through the founding documents of the Ferengi religion, which is a set of 400 rules on how to interact in commerce between other Ferengi and the rest of the galaxy. And in following these rules, if we can, some of them we can't do in today's society, but in following these rules, we have the hope that we can all go to the divine treasury at the end of life and bargain for a new life. We did... I don't know why I'm doing this in silence. We did the 147th rule of acquisition last week, on Monday rather. And we move on to the 151st rule of acquisition in canon, both alpha and beta. The 148th, 149th, and 150th rule are missing. So we move on to the 151st rule of acquisition. Even when you're the customer, sell yourself. That's an interesting topic when we look at being a customer and what that means coming out of here. Now, you can be the seller and try to sell yourself instead of your product, which will actually go on to the 153rd rule of acquisition, sell the sizzle, not the steak. We'll go into more depth on that next Friday. But on the 151st rule of acquisition, even when you're the customer, sell yourself. This goes hand in hand with the 141st rule of acquisition, only fools pay retail. Now, if you are selling to somebody who is just coming in here with a stack of statistics and saying, I know this about this vehicle, I went to TrueCar, this is the only amount that I can pay, I can't pay any more than this, and you need to give me the best deal, this is what this vehicle costs, this is your dealer retail. We're going to use cars as an example here, because it's the most common thing that people talk their way down on. I have all these facts and statistics, and I need you to sell me this car at this price. Is your car salesman going to want to do that? Or who is he more likely to do that? That guy or the guy who comes in and sits on the desk and say, hey, how's the family? Oh, I love your new tie. Hey, yeah, did you catch that ball game? That was pretty awesome. Yeah. No, hey, thanks for selling the girlfriend that car. That was really cool. Hey, I like this truck that you have on your website here. I don't know if I want to pay that much, but you can do this much. You and me. And it works that way in anything where you can haggle on retail on. Now, obviously, when you're in the big department store, the big box store, there's really no room to haggle on anything. But you're selling a cell phone, or you're buying a cell phone off of Craigslist. People still use Craigslist. I don't even know. Or you're buying that house. You're working with a realtor. What other? I was so poor for so long. I don't know a lot of the things that other people bought. Or, you're trying to finagle on that apartment. I mean, I sat down and I BS'd with the dude at the Ford dealer when I bought, or the GM dealer rather. I bought it secondhand at the Chevy dealer in Illinois. I BS'd with him for 3 hours. I knew more about that dude's life by the end of all that than I think I knew about my own life. And he had the truck listed at $17,900. I bought it for $16,500. Part of that was that when we were going down the road at the very end of the turn on a vehicle that doesn't have a power steering pump, by the way. I still don't know what happened. I took the last left turn, or right turn rather, to go back down the road to the dealership when we were just finishing up the Tesla. I drive and I heard the belt start to scream at me. I said, I was actually saying in the midst of that sentence, I said, yeah, I don't think I see 17.9 here, but I can definitely do 17. And I turned the wheel and I heard come out of the engine. It wasn't a tire squeal, it was a belt squeal. I said, I mean 16.5. But we had been BSing all day, and I know because I was late for coming home for Contemporary that day. Harvey McLeod was on, or not Contemporary. When I bought that truck, was it still Ed's World? Yeah, it was. Harvey McLeod was joining me on Ed's World that day, and I was late that day. And I had to tell her, I was like, yeah, I just bought a truck, and now I have to drive an hour home because I went an entire hour to find a truck with a V8 and extended cab. Because I don't like the EcoBoost, and I like the, I don't like four-door vehicles. But the question there is, again, who do you want to go and offer a discount to, or move a little bit? The guy who's down there with every statistic sitting out there, or the guy who's like, hey, tell me about your life. How do you feel? How's your life going? Even when you're the customer, you sell yourself and you will come out ahead, because only fools pay retail. And the person that you're working with is trying to sell the sizzle and not the steak. And with that, we're out of here for the day and the weekend. Reminder that our live chat segment, our regular big live chat segment, has moved to Monday, starting this coming Monday. That's why we did second rules of acquisition this week. So both we'd have names in the notebook to read for the live chat segment on Monday, and also so that, we got through this and got everybody used to the new schedule. So that's our big reminder, and be here on Monday, 6 p.m. Central Time. I don't have to work, so I promise I won't be held late for work. But 6 p.m. Central Time, and we'll go over the news of the day, and I will read your commentary as well. And hopefully some of you guys, again, on Friday will start getting dates, and we'll be doing more of this on the replay. I do look at the replay numbers, and I see how many of you guys come back and watch on the replay, so thank you guys for that. I do hope that for Fridays, we get more people out on fish fries and playing volleyball and drinking beers and stuff, and less people on the live and more on the replays for that one. The one drawback of not doing a morning show, we would rather have on a Friday night people going out and doing this kind of stuff. But let's throw some outro music up and head out of here for the weekend. Where's my outro music? There it is. All right, so thanks everybody who came by, chatted, hung out in the live chat. It was a good time. Ron Helton held the majority of it, but the numbers were good today, so thank you guys for that. We'll be back here on Monday for more news, more headlines, more contemporary. I don't know why, but I anticipate that there's going to be a lot this weekend, so we will see what happens in the next 2 days, and we'll be back here at 6 p.m. Central Time on Monday for more news, and at 7:45 Central Time on Monday, we will go through all the live chat that you guys did that day. Plus, I will read the names in the notebook of everybody who chatted throughout the week, and we'll have 5 days of people who chatted throughout the week to read from here. So definitely looking forward to seeing some of that. We will be here next time for more of that. See you then. If you're on the Twitch side, stick around. We're going to go find someone to raid on Twitch. Otherwise, we'll see you then. Until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.